A billionaire receives a call in the middle of the night from a hospital. On the other end of the line, a child begs for company after an accident. He decides to go there, never imagining what that night would reveal. When he arrives, the girl calls him Daddy, and he is left in shock. The New York skyline glittered against the midnight sky, a stark contrast to the emptiness inside Maxwell Bennett's penthouse. From his floor-to-ceiling windows on the 78th floor, the billionaire gazed at the city below, a kingdom he'd built but found no joy in ruling. His financial empire stretched across continents, but at 45, Maxwell lived in isolation, his emotions locked away as securely as the proprietary algorithms that had made him billions. The silence of his apartment was almost suffocating. Maxwell preferred it that way, predictable, controlled, like the markets he manipulated with surgical precision. His schedule was a masterpiece of efficiency. Meetings timed to the minute, meals prepared to exact nutritional specifications, even his limited human interactions were calculated for maximum benefit and minimal emotional investment. Tonight, like every night, Maxwell reviewed quarterly projections until 2 in the morning before heading to bed. His phone, programmed to allow calls from only 7 people worldwide, suddenly pierced the silence with its ring. Frowning, he glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Maxwell's first instinct was to ignore it, a wrong number or system glitch, but something compelled him to answer. "Hello?" His voice was sharp, unaccustomed to unexpected conversations. Is anyone there?" The voice on the other end was small, trembling, a child's voice cracking with fear. "Please don't hang up, I'm scared." Maxwell's analytical mind immediately assessed. Misdial, hospital background noise, distressed minor. He should end the call. Instead, he asked, "Where are you calling from?" "St. Catherine's Hospital. I'm not supposed to use the phone, but nobody's coming." A small sob broke through. "I don't want to be alone anymore." Maxwell felt something stir inside him, an uncomfortable foreign sensation. Empathy, perhaps, or something deeper. "Where are your parents?" he asked, already knowing they wouldn't be available. "There was a car accident. They took them away." The girl's voice dropped to a whisper. "The nurse said they're not coming back." Maxwell closed his laptop. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Collins." "Emma, I'm Maxwell. I'll come to the hospital." The words left his mouth before his brain could object. Highly irrational, completely out of character. Yet 15 minutes later, his driver was navigating towards St. Catherine's, while Maxwell sat rigid in the back seat, questioning his own judgment. The hospital corridors were a labyrinth of fluorescent lighting and antiseptic smells. Following a nurse's directions, Maxwell found room 307. Inside, a small figure huddled, beneath thin hospital blankets, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. Emma couldn't have been more than 8 years old, with chestnut hair falling in tangles around a pale face. Her left arm was bandaged, and a bruise bloomed across her cheekbone. Her eyes, red-rimmed from crying, widened when she saw him. "Are you Maxwell?" she asked, voice small. "Yes." He stood awkwardly at the threshold, briefcase still in hand, as if this were a business meeting. "You called me." "I just dialed numbers. I thought maybe you were my Uncle Drew, but he lives far away." Her grip tightened on the rabbit. "The nurse said social services is coming tomorrow morning." Maxwell nodded, uncertain why this information affected him. "Do you have other family?" Emma shook her head. "Just Uncle Drew, but he's in Japan. Mum said he's teaching English there." Maxwell sat in the visitor's chair, placing his briefcase on the floor. "I'll stay until morning when proper arrangements can be made." For the first time, Emma's face relaxed slightly. "Thank you." She held up the stuffed rabbit. "This is Mr. Whiskers. He's scared too." Maxwell studied the worn toy. "Hello, Mr. Whiskers." The words felt ridiculous coming from his mouth, yet somehow necessary. Throughout the night, Emma drifted between fitful sleep and terrified wakefulness. During one calm moment, she asked, "Do you have kids?" "No," Maxwell replied. "Why not?" Such directness. "I never found the right situation." "My dad said situations don't find you, you make them." Emma's eyes began to close again. That's what he always said. As dawn broke over the Manhattan skyline, Maxwell watched the small girl sleep. Something about her reminded him of himself at that age, the night his mother had left, never to return, the night his father had told him that emotions were weaknesses. That strength came from the mind, not the heart. When social services arrived, Maxwell surprised himself again. I'd like to discuss temporary guardianship options. 2 weeks of intense legal proceedings and background checks later, Maxwell Bennett stood in an empty bedroom of his penthouse. The pristine white walls and minimalist furniture looked clinical and unwelcoming. This would never do. Mr. Bennett? His assistant Sarah appeared at the doorway. The interior designer is here with the proposals. Maxwell nodded. What did Emma say about colors? Lavender and mint green. She mentioned something about her mother promising to paint her room. Those colors someday. Something tightened in Maxwell's chest. Make it happen. Today. 48 hours of frantic redecorating transformed the space. Lavender walls with mint accents, a canopy bed with twinkling fairy lights, bookshelves filled with adventure stories and science books, a desk for homework, a window seat overlooking Central Park. When Emma arrived, suitcase in one hand and Mr. Whiskers in the other, she stopped at the bedroom doorway. Her eyes widened, filling with tears. It's like the room Mum always promised, she whispered. Maxwell, uncomfortable with displays of emotion, simply nodded. The temporary guardianship is for 3 months. We'll figure things out as we go. Emma stepped into the room, touching the bedspread with reverence. Thank you. That night marked the beginning of a strange new routine. Maxwell rearranged board meetings to drive Emma to her new school. He hired tutors and a child psychologist. He learned about elementary school curricula and proper nutrition for growing children. His executive team was baffled by his sudden schedule changes, but no one dared question him. One night, 3 weeks after Emma's arrival, Maxwell was awakened by screams. He rushed to her room to find her thrashing in bed, eyes open but unseeing. Emma? He approached cautiously. It's just a nightmare. But she wasn't responding to him. Instead, she began mumbling strings of numbers and phrases. The Cardinal flies at midnight. Sequence Alpha Tango 793. Protect the Foundry Protocol. Maxwell froze. Those weren't random phrases. Alpha Tango protocols were high-level military encryption designations. The Foundry Protocol was a rumored Defense Department initiative. How could an 8-year-old know these terms? He gently woke her, and Emma had no memory of speaking in her sleep. But the incident wasn't isolated. 3 nights later, Maxwell found her sleepwalking, trying to hide something in the living room wall panel. Emma, he called softly. What are you doing? Her eyes were open but glazed. Daddy said to hide it where only the right person will find it. In her hand was a small locket, silver, with intricate engravings. Maxwell had seen her wearing it, but assumed it was just a memento from her parents. When she woke the next morning, Emma had no recollection of the sleepwalking episode. The locket hung around her neck, as always. Maxwell decided not to press the issue, but he began taking notes of her strange behaviors. Emma refused certain foods and drinks without explanation, pushing away anything with artificial sweeteners or certain preservatives. The child psychologist suggested it might be related to trauma, but Maxwell wasn't convinced. Then came the drawings. In art therapy, Emma produced intricate geometric patterns that looked remarkably like circuit designs. When asked about them, she shrugged. They're just pretty. One evening, while Emma was doing homework, Maxwell received a call from his personal lawyer, Richard Hargrove. Max, we need to talk about Emma's parents. Maxwell stepped into his home office. What about them? I've been looking into the accident. Something doesn't add up. Daniel Collins wasn't just an engineer at Westfield Technologies. He was head of their quantum encryption division, had top security clearance. Maxwell frowned. Meaning? Meaning the night before the accident, he downloaded terabytes of classified data. The company reported it as corporate espionage. The FBI was already investigating when the accident happened. A chill ran through Maxwell. You think it wasn't an accident? I'm saying be careful. That kid might be carrying more baggage than a stuffed rabbit and night terrors. After hanging up, Maxwell stood at his office window watching the lights of Manhattan. In the reflection, he saw Emma appear in the doorway, Mr. Whiskers, clutched to her chest. Are you going to send me away? She asked quietly. Maxwell turned, surprised. Why would you think that? Because people are looking for something. Daddy said they might come for me someday. Maxwell knelt to her level. Who's looking for what, Emma? She touched the locket around her neck. I don't know, but Daddy made me memorize things, said I had to keep them safe until I found someone I could trust. Her eyes, suddenly old beyond their years, met his. Can I trust you, Mr. Maxwell? Before he could answer, Emma suddenly stiffened, then collapsed. Maxwell caught her before she hit the floor, panic seizing him. Her eyes fluttered open seconds later. Emma? Should I call a doctor? She blinked, confused. Why am I in your office? Maxwell realized with growing unease that she had no memory of their conversation. Whatever was happening with Emma Collins went far beyond ordinary trauma, and somehow he was now at the center of it all. The silver locket weighed heavily in Maxwell's palm as he examined it in his private laboratory. After the disturbing episode in his office, he had asked Emma if he could borrow it while she slept. She'd hesitated before carefully removing it from her neck. Daddy said never to take it off, she had whispered, but I think he would say it's okay to give it to you. Now, under the specialized scanning equipment, the locket revealed its secrets. Hidden within the ornate engraving was a microscopic memory chip, almost undetectable without the right equipment. Maxwell's cybersecurity team had confirmed it contained encrypted files, but breaking into them would require specialized skills. Sir, you should see this, said Olivia Chen, his head of digital security. She pointed to the scan results. The encryption is military grade. But there's something else. The locket has biometric security. It needs a specific voice pattern combined with a genetic marker to unlock. Maxwell frowned. Emma's voice? Her DNA? Possibly. Or her father's. Or both, working in tandem. Maxwell dismissed his team and sat alone with the locket, turning it over in his hands. What information was so valuable that Daniel Collins would hide it this way? And why involve his daughter? His phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Need to talk, urgent. They met at a quiet cafe in the West Village. Richard looked haggard, glancing nervously around the room. I gave a copy of the locket's exterior design to a contact, Richard said, voice low. 3 hours later, my apartment was broken into. Nothing taken, but everything was searched. Maxwell's face remained impassive. You were followed. That's not all. Richard slid a folder across the table. Emma's father wasn't just developing encryption. He was part of Project Harbinger. Never heard of it? Few have. It's a deep black program studying memory implantation and retrieval. Theoretical stuff about storing data in human memory patterns. Maxwell remembered Emma's strange recitations during her sleep episodes. Not so theoretical. There's more. 5 companies provided funding for Project Harbinger. Richard tapped the folder. Bennett Financial acquired 3 of them over the last decade. Maxwell felt the floor shift beneath him. His acquisitions team had bought dozens of tech startups for their patents and talent. He'd never personally vetted every research project. Are you saying I'm connected to whatever Daniel Collins was involved in? I'm saying be careful. Someone thinks you are. As Maxwell left the cafe, a black SUV with tinted windows idled across the street. He took a circuitous route home, changing cabs twice. Emma was with her tutor when he arrived. Seeing, her bent-over math problems, tongue sticking out in concentration, Maxwell felt a surge of protectiveness he'd never experienced before. Whatever her father had entangled her in, she remained an innocent child. That evening, as Maxwell read Emma a bedtime story, another new routine he'd surprisingly come to enjoy, she suddenly sat up. I need to play the piano, she announced. Maxwell blinked in confusion. You play piano? No, but I need to. Her voice had that strange, distant quality that appeared during her episodes. Maxwell's penthouse had a grand piano in the living room, a showpiece he'd never played. Emma walked to it with purpose, sat down, and began playing a haunting melody. Her small fingers moved with precision impossible for an untrained child. The tune was complex, mathematical in its progression. As the final notes faded, Emma looked at Maxwell with clarity. "The locket. You need to hold it while I play." Maxwell retrieved the locket from his safe. Standing beside Emma at the piano, he held it in his palm as she played the melody again. The locket grew warm, then clicked open for the first time. Inside was not a photo, but a tiny screen that flickered to life. Words appeared. "Voice authentication required." Emma spoke without hesitation. "The cardinal flies when shadows are longest." The screen changed. "Secondary authentication required." Maxwell realized what was happening. "Emma, I think you need to hold the locket now." When she took it, a small needle extended from the hinge, pricking her thumb before retracting. Emma didn't flinch. The screen flashed green, then displayed a message. "Data partition 1 unlocked." Maxwell connected the locket to his secure tablet. Files began downloading, documents, photos, videos. They showed meetings between military officials, corporate executives, and government representatives. Project Harbinger wasn't just research, it was an operation. To develop technologies that could implant false memories and extract real ones. The ultimate interrogation tool. The perfect way to create unwitting spies. And according to the files, it had moved beyond the theoretical into human testing. Most disturbing was a list of companies involved in funding and developing these technologies. Near the top, Bennett Quantum Solutions, a subsidiary Maxwell had acquired 5 years ago. Emma, watching the files download, suddenly spoke. "Daddy said the bad people want to use the piano in people's heads to make them dance to the wrong music." Maxwell looked at her, understanding dawning. "Your father opposed the project?" Emma nodded. "He said they wanted to make the music hurt people, so he changed it." As Maxwell scrolled through more documents, he found personnel files. A familiar face appeared on screen. Robert Winters, his own chief technology officer, and one of his most trusted advisors. The file listed Winters as Project Harbinger's executive liaison. Maxwell quickly disconnected the locket and returned it to Emma. "We need to be very careful now," he said quietly. "Some of the people who work for me might be the bad people your daddy was worried about." Emma clutched Mr. Whiskers tighter. "What do we do?" Maxwell made a decision. "We're going on a trip. Tonight." As they packed essential items, Maxwell received an alert on his phone. The building's security system had been overridden. Someone was coming up in the private elevator. Emma looked at him, eyes wide with fear. "They're here." The rain pounded against the windshield as Maxwell drove through the winding roads of Connecticut. In the back seat, Emma slept fitfully. Mr. Whiskers clutched to her chest. Their escape from the penthouse had been a close call. Maxwell had activated his emergency protocol, locking down the private elevator and exiting through a service corridor moments before security was breached. Maxwell glanced in the rearview mirror, checking again for headlights. They'd switched vehicles twice since leaving Manhattan. His mind raced through possibilities, evaluating threats and planning countermoves like the strategic chess player he was. Robert Winters, his own CTO. The betrayal stung more than Maxwell would admit. Winters had been with him for 8 years, helped build Bennett Financial's technological backbone. Now Maxwell questioned every project Winters had ever overseen, every acquisition he'd recommended. The GPS guided them down a narrow lane toward a property few knew existed. Maxwell had purchased this secluded Connecticut farmhouse through a shell company years ago as a contingency. A place to retreat if markets collapsed or competitors became dangerous. He never imagined he'd be using it to protect a child. Emma stirred as the car crunched over the gravel driveway. "Are we there?" "Yes," Maxwell answered, pulling up to the rustic 2-story house. "This is a safe place." The farmhouse was comfortable but modest, nothing like Maxwell's sleek penthouse. Solar panels provided off-grid power, and a satellite connection offered secure communications. The kitchen was stocked with non-perishables, and the basement contained emergency supplies for months of isolation. After settling Emma in a bedroom decorated in muted blues, Maxwell set up his secure laptop at the kitchen table. He needed to understand exactly what he was dealing with. The files from the locket had revealed disturbing information, but he sensed they contained only pieces of a larger puzzle. "Can't sleep?" Emma stood in the doorway, barefoot in her pajamas. Maxwell looked up. Too much to figure out. She padded over and climbed onto a chair. "Daddy used to work at night too. He said nighttime is when secrets talk louder." Maxwell studied her face. "Emma, do you remember your father teaching you piano?" She shook her head. "I never took lessons, but you played perfectly tonight. Sometimes I just know things, like they're hidden in my head, and they come out when they need to." She traced patterns on the wooden table. "Daddy used to play games with me, memory games. He'd show me pictures or play sounds, then have me close my eyes and repeat them. Sometimes he'd give me special juice before we played." Maxwell frowned. "Special juice?" "It tasted like oranges but made my head feel buzzy." She looked up at him. "Was that bad?" "No, Emma. Your father was trying to protect you." Maxwell was beginning to understand. Daniel Collins had used his knowledge of memory encoding to implant information in his daughter's mind, information that could only be accessed through specific triggers. The piano melody was one such trigger. "Do you know why people might want the locket, Emma?" She nodded solemnly. "Daddy said it has the truth inside, and the truth can stop the bad people from making the wrong kind of music." Maxwell pulled up the Project Harbinger files again. According to the documents, the technology had progressed to advanced trials. Subjects could be implanted with false memories so convincing they would pass polygraph tests. More disturbing, they could be programmed with trigger phrases that would activate hidden commands. The military applications were obvious, but the private sector uses were equally troubling. Corporate espionage, manipulation of witnesses, even altering political perspectives on a mass scale. And Bennett Financial, through its subsidiaries, had been funding it all. As dawn broke over the Connecticut countryside, Maxwell made a decision. "Emma, we need to get the rest of the information from the locket." She rubbed sleep from her eyes. "There's more inside." "Yes, do you know how to unlock it?" Emma's face became serious. "We need to go to my old house." Maxwell stiffened. "That's not safe." "Daddy said if anything happened to him, I should go home and look at the stars from my bedroom window. That's where the key is." Maxwell weighed the risks. Emma's family home in New Jersey would be the first place Winters would look, but if the final piece of evidence was there... His phone rang. Richard's emergency line. "Max, thank God. Are you safe?" "For now." "What's happening?" "Your board called an emergency meeting." Winters told them you've had some kind of breakdown, that you've kidnapped your ward and fled the city. They're filing for emergency custody revocation. Maxwell's grip tightened on the phone. "He's moving faster than I expected. There's more. Someone tried to access your personal servers. They're looking for something specific." "The Harbinger files." "Whatever you've stumbled into, it's big. Corporate partners are distancing themselves. Stock is starting to slide. You need to come back and address this." Maxwell looked at Emma, who was watching him with those serious eyes that seemed to understand far more than an 8-year-old should. "I can't." "Not yet." After ending the call, Maxwell sat in silence. His empire, built over 20 years of relentless work, was being dismantled in days. Everything he valued was at risk. Yet looking at Emma, he realized his priorities had fundamentally shifted. The empire could fall. The child could not. "We'll go tonight," he decided, "to your house." That evening, as they prepared to leave, Emma suddenly froze, staring out the window. "What is it?" Maxwell asked, instantly alert. "I remember this place," she whispered. Maxwell frowned. "You've never been here before." "Not in person." Emma pointed to a weathered tree visible through the window. "But Daddy showed me pictures. He said if things went wrong, this is where the good man would take me." Maxwell felt a chill. "Your father knew about this house?" Emma nodded. He said you'd protect me when the time came. Emma, that's not possible. Your father never met me. He said you wouldn't know him, but he knew you. Emma's eyes held his. He said the phone call wasn't an accident. It was always supposed to be you. The Collins family home sat dark and silent, a modest two-story colonial in a quiet New Jersey suburb. Maxwell parked, 2 blocks away, scanning the neighborhood for surveillance. Nothing seemed amiss, but he remained vigilant as they approached on foot. "It feels different," Emma whispered as they reached the back door. Empty. Maxwell picked the lock with skills acquired in a less respectable phase of his life. The house was untouched, furniture draped in sheets, mail piled on the table, a thin layer of dust covering surfaces. No one had been here since the accident. Emma moved through the rooms like a small ghost, touching familiar objects with reverent fingers. In the living room, she paused before a family photo. Emma between her parents, all smiling against a backdrop of autumn trees. "Dad knew things were dangerous," she said softly. "He started teaching me the memory games right after Christmas. Mom didn't like it." Maxwell followed her upstairs to a bedroom painted sunshine yellow. Glow-in-the-dark stars dotted the ceiling. Emma went straight to the window seat and pressed a hidden latch. A compartment opened, revealing a small wooden box. "Daddy said only look at this when the stars are watching," she explained, taking the box to the center of the room where moonlight streamed through the window. Inside was a USB drive and a letter. Emma handed both to Maxwell. "It's for you." Maxwell opened the letter with steady hands. "To whoever protects my daughter. If you're reading this, 2 things have happened. I am gone, and you have earned Emma's trust. I pray both circumstances have occurred for the right reasons. My name is Daniel Collins. Until recently, I led Project Harbinger's encryption division. What began as research to help trauma victims recover lost memories became something darker, a weapon to manipulate minds on a scale previously unimaginable. When I discovered the true purpose, I compiled evidence of wrongdoing by military contractors, government officials, and corporate sponsors. I knew they would silence me, so I divided the evidence, half in the locket, encoded to respond only to my daughter's biometric signature and memory triggers, half on this drive, which contains the encryption keys and final proof. You were not chosen randomly. Your company's involvement gave you both motive and means to help. Your personal history suggested you would protect a child in need. The behavioral algorithms I designed predicted you would answer that phone call. Forgive me for using you. Forgive me more for using my daughter. I implanted trigger-activated memory partitions containing information too dangerous to leave exposed. She remembers only what is safe for her to know consciously. The USB contains a press package with all evidence, ready for distribution to major news outlets. It also contains adoption papers for Emma, already processed through backdoor channels, requiring only your signature to legitimize. One last thing. There is a neural inhibitor compound that can prevent memory implantation technology from working. I've included the formula. Without it, no one is safe from what's coming. Take care of my daughter. She will help you find your humanity, as she did mine. Daniel Collins. Maxwell lowered the letter, meeting Emma's gaze. The final pieces clicked into place. Daniel Collins hadn't just been a whistleblower. He'd orchestrated this entire scenario, using his own daughter as both vault and key. "Did you know about this?" Maxwell asked gently. Emma shook her head. "Not really. But sometimes I dream about Daddy telling me that someday I'd have a new home with a man who needed me as much as I needed him." The sound of vehicles outside broke the moment. Headlights swept across the walls as cars pulled up to the house. Maxwell peered through the curtains. 3 black SUVs, men in tactical gear deployed around the perimeter. Leading them was Robert Winters. "We need to leave. Now." Maxwell pocketed the USB drive and letter. "There's no time," Emma said with unexpected calm. She touched the locket at her throat. "We need to finish it." "Finish what?" "What Daddy started. He said when the time came I would know what to do." Emma sat cross-legged on the floor beneath the glow-in-the-dark stars. She began humming the piano melody, then opened the locket. The screen lit up with new text. Final authentication sequence. State purpose. Emma spoke clearly. To protect the truth and stop the wrong music. The locket projected a holographic display onto the wall, a countdown timer set for 5 minutes. Below it, text scrolled. Emergency protocol activated. Distribution sequence initiated. Maxwell stared in shock as his phone buzzed with notifications. The same alert appeared on his secure email, messaging apps, and financial platforms. "What's happening?" he demanded. Emma's voice remained eerily calm. "Daddy built a failsafe. If we brought the locket and USB together in this room under these stars, it would send everything to everyone." Downstairs, the front door splintered open. Heavy footsteps pounded through the house. "They can't stop it now," Emma said. Daddy made sure. The holographic display showed hundreds of simultaneous file transfers, news organizations worldwide, government oversight committees, regulatory agencies. The evidence was spreading like wildfire through digital channels, impossible to contain. The bedroom door burst open. Robert Winters stood there, flanked by armed men. "Maxwell, you've made a terrible mistake." Winters' voice was controlled, but his eyes betrayed panic as he saw the holographic display. "Turn it off, now." "It's too late," Maxwell said, standing protectively in front of Emma. "It's already out there. All of it. Project Harbinger. The human trials. Your involvement." Winters raised a hand and the armed men lowered their weapons. His face shifted from panic to calculation. "We can fix this. Contain the damage. You're still a majority shareholder. With your resources and my connections—" "No." Maxwell's voice was firm. "It ends here." The countdown reached 0. The holographic display changed to a single message. Authentication complete. Full distribution successful. Winter's phone began ringing, then another, and another. His face drained of color as he answered. "Yes, sir, I understand. Containment has failed." The armed men received new orders through their earpieces. They backed away, leaving only Winters. "This isn't over," he warned, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew it was finished. After Winters departed, Maxwell and Emma sat in silence as dawn broke over the horizon. "What happens now?" Emma asked finally. Maxwell looked at the adoption papers from the USB drive. "That depends on you." 3 months later, Maxwell stood on the porch of a renovated farmhouse in Connecticut, watching Emma plant flowers in the garden. The scandal had rocked the corporate and military worlds. Project Harbinger had been exposed, its architects facing congressional investigations. Bennett Financial had survived, though significantly restructured after Maxwell. Divested from all military contracts and research subsidiaries, the adoption was finalized. The media storm had passed. Now they were building something neither had experienced before, a normal life. Emma looked up from her gardening and waved. Maxwell waved back, feeling that unfamiliar warmth in his chest that he now recognized as happiness. Inside, on the mantelpiece, sat a framed letter from Daniel Collins, a reminder of the strange path that had brought them together. Beside it stood the family photo from Emma's old house, now joined by a new one, Emma and Maxwell, smiling awkwardly but genuinely on adoption day. The silver locket, its secrets now revealed and purpose fulfilled, hung safely around Emma's neck, no longer a vault of dangerous information, but simply a connection to her past as she built her future. Maxwell's phone rang. He answered to hear his assistant's voice. "Sir, the Bennett Foundation's Children's Rights Initiative is ready for your review." "I'll look at it tomorrow," Maxwell replied. "Today is for family." He hung up and joined Emma in the garden, where she was planting sunflowers, facing east where the light first breaks.